Hey, mama. So before I met Jill Lerman, I did not know independent play was something I could teach my kids. I thought it was something they would learn to do as they got older. Learning effective parenting strategies from Jill and joining her membership has honestly been the best thing for me as a mama needing a break and as a business owner. Since teaching my kids how to play independently, I'm actually able to get work done while they're playing. I'm super, super, super excited for you guys to hear this interview with Jill because she shares so many great tips and strategies for encouraging independent play. So if you're a mama running a business with little ones at home, this episode is for you. All right, let's jump into today's episode. Hey, mama. Welcome to Marketing Without Socials for Moms, the go-to podcast for moms in business who want to stop relying on social media to build their business and build it in a way that fits their current season of life. I'm your host, Andrea Singletary, a wife, mama of two, and visibility strategist for moms. Each week, I'm giving you the inside scoop on how to increase your visibility, leads, and sales through podcasting, email marketing, and collaborations. Ready to truly make social media optional in your business? Grab your chai tea latte and let's dive into today's episode. All right, today I'm sitting down to chat with Jill Lerman, and we're going to be talking all about, her number one hack for getting work done with your kids at home, which is really teaching your kids how to play independently. So, Jill, welcome to the show. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and all about your family.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. So I'm Jill, and I'm an early childhood educator, a play and parenting coach, a play expert, and a mom to a now preschooler. She recently turned 4, and I'm like, I can't really say toddler anymore, which is still new for me. So we're adjusting. So a little bit about my journey and kind of the work I do now, my background. I worked in early childhood education for 15 years, working in private preschools in Manhattan, and taught not only in the toddler classrooms of those schools, but also in their parenting centers. So really like the children that were coming in from infancy, quite literally at a couple of months old, well into the toddler and preschool years. And what I learned during that time and what I became incredibly passionate about was play, specifically child-led play and independent play. I just watched amazing things happen and experiences kind of come alive at the hands of the children I taught from infancy. And I noticed that, laying things out in a certain way to help prompt their play and exploration, or creating experiences that would really then that they could take and run with them, that just magic happened. And that it really was the best tool that we had as not only teachers, but as parents, as caretakers, to support our children across every area of their development. While I was teaching in school, I also started my own business where I was teaching play classes in people's homes, in stores, in play spaces in and around the Manhattan area to help people understand how they could facilitate experiences like the ones I was creating in the classroom at home without having to buy a million new supplies, just using the things they had around them in new and unique ways. And things were going great. And then the pandemic happened. And March of 2020, I found out I was pregnant. At the same week, everything shut down in New York City. My school closed down for the remainder of the school year. My business as I knew it could not run. Like many people, I had to pivot. And I started taking some of the things I was doing in my classes and sharing them virtually. Some of the stores I was teaching in Manhattan and hosting play events for them were looking to build virtual communities and asked me to come and teach classes or do Q&As on their behalf. And I realized while parents were spending more time at home than ever, where they were their kids, they're working full time, they're their kids' teacher, they're also the caretaker, how overwhelmed they felt, and that there really was an opportunity to take some of this knowledge and experience and help them feel empowered and excited and reduce some of that overwhelm and burnout. So that was sort of the new iteration of my business that now has morphed into what I'm doing now. And the truth is, as my business became more freelance and, more virtually based, and I was working from home and then raising my own child, independent play became a lifeline for me. You need those pockets of your day where your child is engaged and connected and doing their own thing so that you can be productive in your business. And I really grew passionate about sharing with other people that were kind of in that same hustle, very much like the community that you've cultivated, about how I've used these tools from my teaching background to now support myself in that area of my life. So that's really now the work that I do both through coaching and through my monthly membership where I share simple ways to facilitate play at home.
Yes, I love that. And I'm excited to chat about this because I feel like this is something that comes up for a lot of moms in business. Like, how do I actually get work done with my
Yep.
kids here?
Yep.
And so tell us what is independent play and why that actually matters. Yes, it's going to benefit us as moms, but how does it benefit our children?
Such a great question. So I think, first of all, what you're tapping into here is such an important piece of this because, yes, it is a helpful tool for us. It does allow us more time, not only for our work, but to get time back for ourselves, to fulfill our own needs. But independent play is incredibly beneficial for our children. It's a necessity for our children. I think that we're fed a lot of information that can make parents, and I'm going to talk specifically about moms, truly, feel guilty around letting their children engage on their own. There almost is like this negative association where we feel like we're being neglectful in some way, or, that we're kind of doing it to them, as opposed to what I want to reframe it as for anyone listening, as you're doing it for them.
Mhm.
Because when our child is engaging independently, independent play is really any time that they're the leader in their play. They're the ones that are cultivating these ideas. They're the leader in the way they're exploring. And it allows for opportunities for certainly creativity, but also problem solving. It allows for opportunities that where they feel empowered to make their own choices. And this translates into other areas of their lives, not just play, right? Because a child who feels empowered to choose their own adventure, to make choices, to figure things out when they're difficult, these are things that then translate into life skills. Because the child who has to kind of figure it out, and self-start helps them to then self-start in other areas, right? The child who is, trying to build and the tower keeps falling down. Oh, it's so frustrating. It's not working. It's not working. But then they keep finding a new way, right? A new way forward. This then builds frustration tolerance when life happens and things don't go the way we want, and we have to pivot and we have to find another way forward, right? So there is a difference between the opportunities our children get to do that when they're leading their play versus when we're involved in it. And I'm not here to say like all adult interaction in play is bad. Of course not. There's a place for everything, especially if it's something that brings you joy and helps you feel connected. But it can't be an all or nothing approach, because when we're involved in our children's play, we change it. We're not equals. I'm not a 4-year-old, right? Like my play skills are different. My influences of the world are different. My ideas are different. When my daughter looks at something, or any of the families, that I work with and I support when we're looking at their children, and I'm talking at any age, the possibilities that they see in a material are very different than what ours are. So when we come in and we're like, no, that's not how we use that. You do this. Oh, no, that's not going to work. We actually have to do this. Or we're playing, it's something dramatic play, and I start bringing up concepts that then take things in a certain direction. now the experience is different, right? So I think we really want to be mindful of the fact that our children need these opportunities in order to really grow in every area of their development.
Yes, I can honestly say just like learning from you has really shifted my mindset when it comes to play because I used to feel so guilty in that, like, I didn't always want to play with my kids. Like, there were
Yeah. Oh my
times where
gosh.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to, like, no, you go play. Like, mommy needs a
Totally.
break. And now I don't feel bad about, like, in those moments where my son's like, oh, I want to play with my Bluey toys. And I tell him, like, you know what, mommy needs a break right now. I'll play with you a little bit later. Like, I don't feel guilty about that. Like, he'll go play
Yes.
with his Bluey toys by himself and enjoy it. And then later on, I can hop in and play with him and stuff like that. So even just kind of
Right.
being freed from that, like not feeling like you constantly have to play with your kids and knowing that it
Yeah.
is okay for them to play independently. Like that's something I really learned from you. And I'm grateful for
Mm.
because it's taken that burden off of me.
No, it's so huge. And honestly, as you're saying this, I'm also thinking to myself, our children are always watching us, right? They are seeing everything we do. They are taking it all in. It's not only about what we say, right? It's what we model through our actions. So I think there is something to respectfully declining and setting a boundary when you just don't have it in you, or it's just not a right now, or I have something else to do. That's also important. It doesn't mean you're not important. But, this also is a part of what I need, what I have to do, my responsibilities. I think it's important our children see that. And I think, it then also shows them, hey, I have trust in you. I trust your capability. I know that even though it might feel hard, that you can figure something out. You have amazing ideas. How empowering is that for a kid to hear, right? And what they hear us say and what we model, this then becomes their inner voice. So when we talk about like the larger implications of these things, play, it's so much bigger than just what's happening in the moment. And there's plenty happening in the moment too. But these then set the stage for these other life lessons as our kids get older, right? And I think that's such a big piece of it too. It's so confidence instilling, it's so trust building. And it helps them feel like, wow, yeah, I'm like, my mom thinks I can do it. And watch me, right? And then that happens to come out as they grow too.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You see that confidence increase and stuff. Just even to like my daughter starting to do more independent play too, and just seeing her, confidently playing with the toys and, creating these different scenarios. And she's only 2, but it's the
I love
cutest
it.
thing ever. Like she'll have the toys talking to each other and whatnot, and she'll
Ah,
have the time of her life. And
I
so just
love
seeing
that.
that too, especially like, cause it's usually during the day when her brother is at home, like normally she has him to play with, but like
Yeah,
now she's starting to really enjoy playing on her own. And so it's exciting to see just those developmental milestones and everything.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit more like independent play, like how does that support us as business owners? And you can even just use yourself as an example, how it allows you to get things done in your business with your daughter at home.
Totally. Yeah. And I'm very much living in the space that I'm also supporting other
Yeah.
families in. So a lot of this stuff is not only things that I'm sharing with clients, in coaching or in my membership, but like I'm right there with you. So there's so much to unpack, but a couple of things that I would love to share that people can walk away with today, right? That are actionable. So the first one I think is if we want to see more child led and more independent play happening, we have to prioritize it in the routine the same way that we do every other thing that we do for our children, right? The same way we make sure they have a snack time or that, we're napping if that's part of your child's routine and schedule. So we really want to think about finding those pockets in the day for independent play to happen. I know for me personally, On the days that my daughter is not in school, because right now she's in school part time, um, she no longer is napping. So, what once was her nap time has now become her quiet time and her independent play time. And it's a kind of a chunk of time midday when she used to nap. It's a time that she already is used to in the flow of our routine, being separate from me and doing things in her own space. And the way that it's evolved now is that she will be in her room. There are certain, activities that she chooses that are kind of like the extra special quiet time things that she gets to do. For parents, these are also things that I feel comfortable with her being in a separate space doing, because part of the only way that this is going to work is if you can actually let go and feel comfortable to get into your workflow while your child is playing, right? So this is one thing that we've now done and kind of that's become a part of our routine. We're during this pocket of time. It's kind of my time to get things done for work on those days. She has her independent and quiet playtime in her room. Look, is it a perfect system? Like, does she come out? She has, she wants to show me something, whatever. Yes, sometimes, but it really does give me a big, mostly uninterrupted chunk in the middle of the day. Now, that's one place. That's something we've built to that also is a product of her age. When she was younger, and even at other times of the day when things come up or, I have pockets where work needs to get done, we approach independent play differently. And I think this is really important for people to hear. We often have this idea of independent play looking kind of the way I described. Our child's off in a separate space, doing their thing for however long a time. You have to build to that. That is not where we start. Maybe that's where we're working toward, and it's still a process. Most young children cannot get really engaged in their independent play without a caregiver being near to them. So I think we often feel like we're failing or a child is failing when that doesn't happen, instead of kind of coming in with the expectation that is not where we start. That's where we finish, right? So in the beginning, and even most times of the day now, outside of the one time I mentioned, I'll set up my daughter with some kind of prompt near to where I am working. So sometimes that's the space you're seeing now because I'm in an apartment and my desk is also the kitchen table is also the living room. Sometimes that might be being in the desk in the bedroom and I set her up with something nearby. Sometimes that's me taking whatever I'm working on into her space. We have to kind of be open and creative to where play happens, and the fact that our child probably is going to need us to be close to them to get it going. Another thing I mentioned, prompts. This is another area where many children cannot get themselves started, especially if independent play is new to them. Some of this is dependent on like personality and temperament. Some kids are just naturally, a little better at self-starting with this. Many children need support. So when I talk about prompts, this is a part of why I started my membership, was to share ideas of how you can use the things you already have, but maybe set them out in a unique way to help your child get started. So little tweaks like maybe they're seeing a favorite toy in an unexpected location, right? Maybe we're putting out two things in partnership that they're not used to seeing, like favorite figurines with blocks or building materials. Like what's that? It's like enough to kind of get them going. Some of this comes from work that we need to do. And this is, again, some of the things I support families with on simple observations. So we have an understanding of what our children are into and what things are going to engage them best, right? Because that does play a role too, and having an understanding of that. But it's not about things that are going to take a lot of time. These are things that are going to take you 3 minutes to put out, but then on the back end are going to give you maybe a half hour to 45 minutes of playtime where they're kind of doing their own thing and you can take care of what you need to. So to me, to spend the 3 minutes, that maybe I wouldn't normally do to then get that in return is so, so worth it. But those are some ways that I kind of use this personally and how I help others to use it. I think getting creative about where your child plays, how they're playing, is kind of where you start. And also starting small. Like these are things that I've now built to. And also, this is the work I do. So it's something I've put a lot of time and effort into on the front end to build that skill. But in the beginning, especially like depending on your child's age, this might look more like we're getting 5, 10 minutes of uninterrupted time. That's a win, right? Like most children's attention spans on average are 1 to 2 minutes times year of their age. If you have a 2-year-old child and you got 5 minutes, hey man, like you're above average. Like that's great, right? So we have to kind of take all of these things into consideration, but it is possible. I see it all the time. It's something I experience personally. And when you approach it in this way with prompts and things like we're mentioning, what starts to happen is it's a muscle. Like anything else, our child builds it with the time and experience. So what starts to happen is they start to need our prompts less and less. And most days they can kind of prompt themselves. I've even had experiences lately. I'm not going to lie. I'll put something out for my daughter and she's like, actually, I have a different idea. I'm like, okay. Like, you know, but we didn't start there.
Yeah.
So I think all of these things are so important for parents to know and think about. I think the biggest one, though, is the really being open to where it happens, not just their play, but also where you're working. When I tell you like the amount of time I'm doing work on my daughter's floor, it's not ideal. But if it means I'm getting more time, I've found ways around it. And I think we can all kind of get creative in that area.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. The biggest thing is like setting those realistic expectations. But
Yes.
I love that you brought up too, like being open to work in different areas. And that's something that I've even started, like the kids have been wanting to play in their room. And so
Yeah.
I'll just go sit in, my son's bed and they'll play on the floor and
Yes.
everything like that. But it's like, I'm able to get work done,
Yep.
they're content. They can still see mommy and,
Yep.
call out to me if they need me and everything. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
just being flexible with where it takes place and whatnot. Like you have your laptop, you could take it with you wherever you need to
That's
go.
right. Totally.
Yes.
And, sometimes that also means getting creative about what tasks get done when.
Yes.
Like, I feel like as mompreneurs, you become, incredibly efficient
Mm-hmm.
at, juggling all the ball. I call it like the octopus arms, like, right? Like you have like so many different things going at once. But I feel like you do become more proficient at knowing, hey, if this is going to be the times that my child is awake or that they're home or, whatever it is, depending on where you're at, that you're thinking about, okay, well, what tasks can get done when? Certain things like responding to emails or like certain types of content I create, for my membership, like in the play plans, those things where I'm typing and, that's kind of easier for me to do sitting with my daughter there and I can take care of those things, knock things out. Things like recording a podcast, recording a virtual class, Zoom calls, that doesn't always function as well at those times. And so you learn to become a little more efficient about when we break out these things. And also, as your children's skills grow, you're then able to do different types of things at different times too. It's kind of a learning curve as you both evolve into this. But as incrementally they get better at playing for longer stretches with less involvement from you, then you're also able to take on different things. And I feel like that's definitely been a learning curve for me personally over time.
Yeah, definitely. So tell us like about some simple activities we can get started with for like encouraging independent play. And if you want to focus like on a specific age group, you can too. But just like to kind of give listeners an idea of like what it looks like to set up those prompts like you've been talking about that would encourage that independent play.
Yeah, sure. So I think, play is going to look different at every age and stage, right? Just depending on our child's skill sets, their interests, all of those things. And there's a constant evolution that's happening. But one thing I think is great to keep in mind for any age is we want to consider the things that are available to our child. And, are they open-ended in nature? Meaning, is there one way to play with this, or are there many ways to play with this, right? Because when something has a lot of play possibilities, not only will it last longer as our child grows and their skills evolve, but also it'll keep them busier for longer stretches of time because there are more ways they can utilize it, right? So we really want to be taking into consideration what's available. Also, this is we could do a whole separate, conversation on this, but like the way things are stored. Are the materials that your child can play with accessible to them? Or does it require you opening a cabinet, reaching to a shelf? Is it lightweight enough that they can pull it down, if you have a toddler or, a young child? So these are all things that do contribute to how our children play that we want to consider. So I like to just mention that off the bat before we even talk about prompts, just even in terms of the toys that you have and how you're utilizing them. In terms of how I use prompts, I think, a big piece of this is how do we get creative with the things that we have and present it in a way that feels novel. And one thing that I love to share, this actually was the theme of one of my play plans in the membership a couple of months ago, was blocks of all different kinds, right? We all have some kind, if you have a young child at home, you have some kind of building engineering thing at home. Maybe you have multiple ones. But the difference between putting out just a basket of magnetic tiles and putting out magnetic tiles with some of your child's favorite figurines, maybe it's superheroes, maybe they're really into their animals right now, maybe they're into Daniel Tiger, right? We can kind of customize this based on what our child is into. When you're following your child's preferences, they're so much more likely to want to explore and play with something the same way that like we would rather do something that we're interested in or that follows what we're currently into, right? So the idea of setting something out like that, and the prompt might be as simple as they're just out together and that's enough. Or maybe it's something like, I wonder if you can build a hideout for your superheroes, right? Or I wonder if you can build a tower with just the blue magnetiles for Elsa. Right? Maybe, and again, we're tying this to their interests. This is such a key part of this. And we're also giving them an idea to get them started, but then they're going to take it and run with it, right? If we want to, I'm looking behind me, my daughter has a dollhouse and it's a great dollhouse. I was like expecting it was kind of going to get more playtime than it was getting. And what I did to prompt her was I put her Paw Patrol figurines in the dollhouse instead of the family that was living there. She played with it for almost an hour while I did work right where we're sitting chatting right now. So sometimes it's these little things, teeny things that are just enough to get them going. This could also look like if you have a child at home who loves like art and creating, if you have a child-sized table, again, I'm looking at the things that are right around me in this moment, but a child-sized table covered in big paper, like mural paper or easel paper, it's very different for a child to see that versus like the regular, 8x11 or coloring book that they're used to. So something about that. And then just like some crayons and stickers could lead into all kinds of play and creating. So again, it's not about like reinventing the wheel. It's like, how are we presenting this? How are we creating opportunities that are maybe a little different, a little exciting? This could also be go in your kitchen, grab like silicone trivets, right? We all have that in some form or fashion, and put some vehicles and maybe some blocks and some figurines out on the trivets, something about a different surface. Tape down aluminum foil and put out some favorite toys on that. What will happen for a toddler driving a vehicle over foil and then seeing the print of the tires as opposed to on the floor? Very different experience for them. So I think that would be my kind of number one tip is to just be thinking about that. What things can go in partnership with each other and how can we present it in a more novel way or a more novel location? Take a toy that they're used to seeing in one space and move it into a different space. You will be amazed at how that changes things. I always say, like, number one play hack, take an indoor toy outdoors, something they don't expect to be able to play with outside, and take it outside, like, game changer. So these are some of the types of ideas like that I share in my community and in the membership, that use, right? These are not things where you're like then having to become the Pinterest mom if that's not who you are. It's not about like having to buy a whole new set of everything because no one has the time for that. It's more about how do we take the things that we have and maybe present them differently or in a unique way. Back to magnetic tiles, last one I'll say for now, but just I want people to have things they can like run and try. If you have those and you put them out with a cookie baking sheet or with like one of those, I don't know, like IKEA rolling carts, like we have one in our bathroom, those are magnetic. Put magnet tiles on the refrigerator or the dishwasher while you're cooking, and they're right near to you in the kitchen, right? These are the types of things that for us seem like so low lift and so like, why would that work? But for our kids are game changing.
I love those ideas. Yeah, the magnets have been a hit here with us. And then also too, something as simple as getting like a bucket with some soapy water and letting them like clean their toys.
Give a
They
toy a
have
bath.
so much fun with
Classic.
that. It's like the best thing ever for them.
Yes, that one is like one of my go-tos from the classroom days. And I know like you have some experience in early childhood too. That was like the thing that it didn't matter what the kids' interests were, like what, skill set they were coming to things with, that just like hit it out of the park with every child across the board. And a beautiful thing about that too is like there can be multiple parts to it. Like, you could paint with cars first, right? Rolling cars through paint. And then we give those cars a car wash and then we dry the cars. And then, right. So you can see also how then the play can become elongated because there's so many different avenues and ways it can happen. And as you're saying this with the toy bath, I'm thinking to myself, I've also had families I work with where that's the provocation and that's kind of how we put it out. And then immediately the toddler dumped the water, but the bowl became a mountain that they were driving the vehicles over, right? The overturned bowl.
Yeah.
And it's like, it still kept them busy. It still kept them engaged. Like the ideas that we're inviting them with these open-ended experiences, and then they get to choose how they utilize it. There's not one way. There's not a right or wrong. That also leads to so much more child-led play.
Yes, definitely. These were like such great ideas for just different types of ways to start independent play with your kids and everything. So thank you so much for sharing those ideas. And of course, as Jill mentioned, her membership, if you're looking for more ideas, definitely check out her membership. It'll be linked below in the show notes. But I like to ask my guests this question. We're switching gears a little bit. So, who is one coach or mentor who has had a major impact on your journey as an entrepreneur? Now, most guests say, oh, I can't just pick one. So if you need to pick two, I will give you two.
I appreciate that. Yeah, gosh, such a good question. So one of the coaches that I worked with, her name is Kathy Stowell, I believe is how you pronounce it correctly. I hope I am. Yes. See, I know you're familiar and connected.
Yeah,
I think that's actually how I found you at some point in time.
We actually did an email swap earlier this year. She's so sweet. Yeah.
She's lovely. And she, I was doing, like I said, a lot of things on social and a lot of kind of content creation on the brand side of things and working on a lot of partnerships with brands, which I still do and I love, and work on development of product and stuff like that. But I really wanted to grow things that were more in my own hands. Right? Like I didn't want to feel so dependent and at the beck and call of other people. I wanted to cultivate my business on my own terms. and I wasn't really sure how. I mean, I'm a teacher by trade, right? I didn't have experience with that, and she helped me so much in creating a model that made sense for my life, where I'm also the primary caretaker of my daughter.
Mhm.
And that helped me put those business pillars in place, so I could have a coaching business, so I could have a membership, so I could have my own podcast. These were all things I wanted to do, and I just did not know where to start. And she is centered around specifically helping mom coaches. So she really understands, as you do, what it is to be in that season of life and cultivating a business, where your priorities are, where your time is. She helped me a lot and really helped make a lot of these things I envisioned for myself a reality. Also, like the back end stuff, like I wanted to have a membership. I have endless ideas for play and classes on development and all these things and the content. But I'm like, how does one set up a membership?
Yeah.
Like, how does one set up like all these? So just helping with that side of things too was so huge. So I owe a great deal of thanks to her. She really helped me a lot. And the first coach that I ever worked with as I was making this virtual pivot into this new iteration of my business. Also, her name's Camelia Breton, and she really helped me on the social media side of it, understanding how to. Again, I was a teacher. I had some of these brand connections from when I taught classes in their space, and that's how I started. But as more brands were reaching out to me about content creation, and I didn't know what the business side of that was.
Mhm.
And she helped me immensely, but she also helped me a lot with mindset. I think so much of, really any success in business is one, believing that you can do it, seeing it
Yeah.
for yourself, right? And then being able to make it a reality. And she really helped me a lot with that and just believing like, hey, this kind of crazy idea I have, I was a classroom teacher, like now I want to do this, that there was a place for it in this world and there were people that needed my support, and my help, and that I could spread that message. She really helped me get in the space of then be able to believe I could do it. And then I'm going to say one more. I have to give you a shout out because I am also in your membership, the Social Detox Club. And like I said, I started on social. It's still a part of my business for sure. But I didn't want to always feel like, hey, my kid's sick. I can't show up on stories and post this week. And now I just don't exist in my business as a result. And the things that you have provided in terms of the other opportunities, not just that they exist, but then how to find them. How do I actually then like book them? And within a couple of months, I've done so many bundles. I've built my mailing list significantly. I think I've in a couple of months had 150 more people on my mailing list.
Oh gosh, that's
I've done a ton
good.
of podcast guesting. Yeah. And
Yeah.
like all of that is thanks to you. So gotta give you a shout out too. She did not tell me to do that, guys, but I have to be real. It really has made a difference, again, of cultivating a business to meet me for where I am now and where my priorities are now, which at the end of the day, my daughter is always going to be my number one. And my business has to function around that.
Yeah, well, I love that. And thank you just for saying all of that. So yeah, like the coaches you work with, like they make such an impact, especially when you can work with ones who truly understand like your season of life and give you those
Yes.
strategies that make sense for you. I feel like that's so
Yes.
important when looking for a coach. So I'm glad that you've had that experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel so lucky. And I like you said, it really is about, there are a lot of amazing people with a lot of wonderful information to impart and share.
Mhm.
And I always feel in like the space I work in, like parenting is the hardest job you'll ever do. And the only one where
Yes.
you're just put in the CEO's office with no training, no resources, right? Like, can you imagine that happening in any other job? No, it would
No.
not. And it's just like, don't mess it up. Which is part of why I wanted to help families, because I was like, here I am with this background and understanding of child development, and it's still hard, right? And I have a lot of that information and those strategies.
Yeah.
So I feel like a big part of what I see in my space is like, it's just hard to ask for help.
Yeah.
And something I have found in my business, and it's hard, but really just being okay with being like, you don't know what you don't know. And there are other people that can support you, and just like being, okay, taking that step and putting that trust. And every time I've done it, it pays off tenfold.
Yeah, that's awesome. So before we wrap things up, I would love for you to share with us a little bit more about your free guide to independent play. Tell us a little bit about it and why we should sign up for it.
Yeah. So, as we talked about a lot in this episode, independent play is just, it's such a gift for both your child and you. It is if you're someone who's feeling caught up in an unsustainable cycle of constantly have to entertain your child, I call it the cruise ship director. Like, nobody has time for that. If you feel like you're leaning into more screen time than you want to be, this is also a very common thing I see, because it just feels like it's the only way to keep our kids quietly engaged so that we can have a moment to take care of what we need to. Any of these things that we talked about today, being more productive in your business, independent play can support you and your child in that. And we talked about all of the benefits for our kids, why it's so crucial that they have those opportunities to lead their play, and all of the things that they gain from it. So I wanted to create a guide of free strategies and tips to get you started in that journey. These are like my tried and true tips, not only that I use personally as a mom, that I use with clients, but that I used in the classroom for many years to help you get started. Some of them we touched on a little bit today, and it's designed kind of like a little workbook where I give you the information and kind of the step and its importance, and then a little spot for you to then figure out, how do I then translate this into my own life, right? Because at the end of the day, each child is incredibly unique. Our lifestyles are unique, and we need this to support us where we are. So it kind of gives you the prompts to do that, to then take these things and actually put them into practice and implement them. And this is something, if your child is an infant, or if your child is well into their elementary school years and you want to start, it can meet you wherever you are.
I love that. That will be linked in the show notes so you guys can download that. But thank you so much, Jill. This was such a good conversation. You shared so many great tips and strategies. But before we get off, please share where listeners can connect with you and learn more about your services.
Yeah, thank you so much. So you can learn about my private coaching packages, my low-cost monthly membership, my podcast, all that good stuff on my website, www.jillybeansnyc.com. You can also find me on Instagram at jillybeansnyc, where I share a lot of different play tips, strategies, ideas, and also just like my own parenting journey. I feel like we moms, especially, like, we need that community. We need to support each other. And I like to be really honest about my own experiences, because I feel like we need to do that more, right?
Yes.
Like we have to share and support one another so that we all feel less alone. It is so easy to feel like you're the only one. So I share a lot of that stuff there too.
All right. Well, I will make sure all of that is linked in the show notes. Well, thank you so much again, Jill. I truly appreciate you coming and sharing all of this with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Hey, Mama. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to hang with me. I would love to keep the conversation going. So head to mamaturnedmompreneur.com/marketing without socials to join my email community. I share even more tips and strategies for building a business that doesn't rely on social media and one that fits your current season of life, as well as more behind the scenes of mom and business life. All right, Mama, that's it for today, but I'll catch up with you again next week.